Hello guys, in this video I want to share my civilian experience of what is life like in times of the blackouts, electricity outages caused by the Russian attacks on the Ukrainian energy infrastructure. It first began in autumn 2022. It continues because Russians keep targeting Ukrainian energy infrastructure, but definitely we are much better adapted. I think this video can be useful to people in different corners of the world because there can be different reasons for the electricity outages. But when I started collecting my memories and facts that I want to share with you, I think this video will be very personal and very emotional. But this is also important. It's not just about the types of the generators that you should buy. It is also about the experiences that you have to go through, and they are not always on the surface of the news. So let me tell you the story, what is life like in this very, very dark times, when at the same moment you can experience a lot of good light coming from the hearts of people. The first serious electricity outage happened, I guess, in October 2022, when Russia, just before the start of the winter season, began targeting Ukrainian energy infrastructure objects, causing severe electricity outages. No one could predict something similar because, according to the Geneva Convention rules of war, you do not target the infrastructure that is meant for schools, hospitals, apartments. But they wanted to organize this cold terror, understanding that winter is coming, electricity is closely connected to the heating, to the water, and that was just one of these very violent measures to break the spirit of the Ukrainian people. It actually turned out to be the contrary, not the first time we break Putin's plans, but still. I have to introduce you to the Ukrainian weather here. Winter typically starts in mid-November, but this is also quite a depressive period because it gets dark really early. The sun sets, everything gets quite gray, cold rains, some snow. And those of you who travel to the Eastern European countries, with all my love to my country, to my part of the world, it may look gloomy. And actually, the streets, everything looks gray, once again, because of the lack of sunlight. And that was exactly the time when they first turned the electricity off for almost all of the country. Just imagine how it looked, I don't know, from the space or from the plane, from this aerial view, when you can see thousands of square kilometers without any light. Another very important thing that you don't understand before you experience a blackout, that a lot of other things in your household depend on electricity, not directly. I mean, it's quite obvious that your television will not work, or, I don't know, the light in your bathroom, but your internet most likely will collapse too. And the same goes for the mobile phone. Because these mobile towers that are needed for the quality connection, they also need a lot of electricity, and they get out of order really quickly. And so the problems with water appear also really quickly because of the pumps that are needed to push water to the upper floors of the building. That was something I could not predict, because you think about electricity and then you realize not only you have to stay in the darkness, you don't have water. This very first blackouts, they lasted long. Like it could be a day in my region, far away from the front lines, and closer to the front lines where there are more attacks and Russians could reach with bombs and artillery. People could stay for weeks without electricity. And during winter, during really cold months, This leads to a freezing of the pipes and also causes lots of problems for the system. Even when electricity returns, some of the pipes can be broken because of the ice in them. And also people who live in high-storied buildings, and there are skyscrapers in some of the Ukrainian cities, they suffered the most because many of these apartment buildings are totally electric, like they don't have gas. So people did not have electricity, did not have a possibility to cook food, did not have water, did not have elevators. And all of that in times when air raid alerts continue and shellings continue, and you need to escape from your 22nd floor by foot. I know what I'm saying because my cousin in Lviv lives on a very, very high floor. And it was a nice idea before the start of the invasion, but right now it causes a lot of problems. So there is no light, there is no internet, there is not mobile connection, and there is no water. Also, important thing, it did not last like for months because some people misinterpret it. Also, quite often you would have like 12 hours without electricity in the worst period, and then like 4 hours of electricity back. So you could plan your time. It's difficult, but please remember to subscribe to this new channel because it gives me inspiration and I'm sharing some very personal things here. So I do need the boost of confidence, you know. So people were joking, you know, Ukrainians joke really well that the best motivation for your time management is the schedule of your electricity. And there were a lot of people who actually planned, I don't know, to get up late at night, somewhere at 3 a.m. To do the washing or to finish course paper, something like that, because they knew they can have electricity there. But it all came later, after we have adapted, developed the schedule, you know. Before that, during these first weeks, it was really difficult, and I remember these very dark streets. And it's really difficult to drive because people traditionally are wearing dark clothes in winter here. And it was one of the biggest problems for the drivers and for the pedestrians to see each other. And that was the moment when a new business began for this light reflective things. And right now you will see a lot of children, even pets like dogs and cats wearing a light reflective things. And once again, winter, it gets dark really quickly. But at the same time, this was perhaps the first moment in my life when I realized that the moon and stars can give you some light, enough of light. That's how our great-great-grandparents lived. And also when it's snowing and the snow is on the ground, it gets lighter. And what surprised me is that literally a couple of days after the start of this very severe blackouts, people began buying generators, especially for their businesses. And you could walk the streets. They are really dark, but people wanted to go out. You know, like, what's the reason to stay indoors if it's dark and cold? And many went out. And I remember this amazing experience when I saw so many people walking and talking and laughing. And, you know, it was just like a festival on the streets. And cafes and restaurants, they could not like work properly, but they started selling hot wine, tea. It's difficult to make a coffee during a blackout because these coffee machines, they consume a lot of electricity. And it was so magical, like when you walk down this very dark streets after Russia destroyed your energy and they want you to freeze to death, but you go out and you meet hundreds and thousands of your people and they talk and they laugh in this very modest manner, and you drink hot wine and you look at the moon, and that's the moment when you feel how strong and how decent you are. How decent. I don't know if it's the proper word, but that was the proper feeling. And that's a moment when you literally love everyone you see on the streets and those dogs in light reflective colors. Now I'm gonna tell you some hard things. You know, these electricity outages, they also influenced hospitals and schools, like everything. And it was particularly difficult with hospitals because people continue to need, operations, and they were all frozen at the beginning. Then when the schedule appeared, they were postponed. And hospitals were among the first ones to receive the super big generators. And the doctors, they had to learn how to use them, because any moment the electricity is out, you have to be able to quickly turn on, because a lot of people, for example, on life supply or in this intensive care units, they need gadgets to work constantly. And of course, many hospitals, they do have generators even without war, because that's like the rule, but still, the extent to which they need them changes dramatically during this blackouts. And as my mom was going through her chemotherapy at that period, I remember seeing how doctors, who were actually responsible for a dozen of important things, were also running and learning how to turn on, turn off generators. And they bought a lot of fuel for these generators for their own money. Not because the country did not provide them with, but it's, bureaucracy takes long. And when you realize that your patients need that and you need to turn on the generator, you cannot wait for a month. You need it now. And people were simply buying it. And of course, the prices were rising. And of course, it was difficult to get sometimes, but that's why some of the Ukrainians cannot react properly and, for example, sympathize with the people who are over concerned about like a small amount of price rising in gas or petrol when you go through such challenges. And Russia does that to you. This cannot be forgiven and forgotten. And one of my very tough memories is when it's dark in the hospital. And mind, this is quite a depressing hospital. And they do give some electricity to the gadgets, but they don't turn on the light in the corridor. And some patients are not feeling really well and they want to go to the toilet, or they need to go elsewhere. And I do remember my mom feeling better and helping another lady walk down this dark corridor lit with candles, with flashlights. And I remember them walking and like disappearing in that darkness of this very long corridor. I so much wish her last year was not like that. And if you really want to know, I don't know, if you're writing books, collecting things for movies, one thing that I can never forgive, one thing that will never be okay for me, she left during this period of blackouts. She was in bed and there was no electricity for hours. And she could not watch television, which distracts. And she stayed in that period forever. I know she sees me from above, I believe that, but I will never forgive Russia for that discomfort of the already tragic situation for her. And there are millions. And trust me, there are hundreds of people who did not receive the necessary treatment or something, or care, just because Russia targeted the energy infrastructure, which is forbidden. This is electricity for hospitals and schools. Students had to study in this asynchronic regime, because you cannot predict when electricity is in or out. And then when maybe you don't understand how do we get this schedules. Well, first, when they target an object, you lose electricity. Then brave people who are also heroes do something. And other regions or other locations share energy with you too, but you don't have enough of energy because one object is lost, it's not operating at the moment. So you have this lack of energy. And that is why they introduce schedules so that you know specific hours when you have electricity and specific hours when you don't, to make you feel a little bit better so that you can plan, you can work on something, and this definitely saves a lot of anxiety. For example, you know when you can take a shower. Right now, this winter, we did not experience that severe blackouts. And I'd say these were just a couple of weeks, maybe during summer when it was very hot and the consumption of energy was really high. So they had to ban the usage of air conditioning, especially in the big cities. Then, for example, my native town is not that big. We don't have underground, we don't have big factories or plants. So we do not consume that much energy, and we typically have way shorter blackout than, for example, the ones in Kyiv. When I work in Kyiv, I suffer more, and that is why I often love to work from home, not in Kyiv, where I have a lot of tasks too, because I have fewer hours of electricity during outages. Right now, there are no electricity outages in Ukraine. You have to understand it's not a permanent situation. It happens after some severe attacks and lasts during a certain months. Also, it depends on the weather conditions. And when it's really hot or it's really cold, people consume more energy. Russians know that, and that's the moment when they attack the most. Ukrainians are super adaptable. And right now, every household has a generator or an EcoFlow. I know many of you want a separate video on that, on types of generators and so on. I'm not that good at it, but I can share and show you, for example, the generators of the shops that are near me, the EcoFlow that I'm using. Let me know in the comments below, would you like that? But this sound of generators is really loud, but people turn them on. And lots of very big trade centers right now continue working. All they do, they turn off this escalators, but the rest is working. And it is such an unusual experience when you shop in Zara at twilight, feeling like that. What many also do not understand is that during this very severe blackout, we had firefighting machines that informed us about air raid alerts, because the systems that produce the sound, they are also electricity dependent. And that's insane. Just look at the level of this real genocide that Russia is doing to Ukraine. And some think sanctions can be lifted only after Russia is severely defeated and demilitarized. And so right now, the majority of us have applications in which the regional electricity company informs you about the potential electricity outages, how long they will last. You will receive a message 20 minutes before it is turned off, and then 20 minutes before it comes back. And what I love, the message is not you will get your electricity back, but they have this very beautiful message in the digital Kyiv that says, light is coming back to your home. Just think about, light is coming back to your home, And there are even jokes in Ukraine about these generators that who is the best boyfriend, who is the best on the market of fiancés, a person that has the largest generator. And I love it about Ukrainians. But another very personal thing is that I don't like now candles. I lit them. I have always loved candles. but now I only like them when electricity is on. And I don't have, like, you know, romantic feelings as I previously might have had when watching the light. These are very typical Ukrainian candles that we put in the churches. They are small, but they are made of natural wax, and they are also good. I will lit one to show you. And quite often in Ukraine, we also compare human life to a candle, like the process, you know. And some candles, they burn really quickly, and the lights can be very, like, bothered. Others are very straight and they burn long and good. And I remember such candle burning when the blackout was in my mom's bedroom next to her. We were talking. I had to make tea, not in the kettle, not in the electric kettle, but on the stove, like when you have to boil, like at school they did when I was a kid. And I was like, she thought everything is going to be better. I knew that it won't. It was the greatest, like, burden for me. And I was watching at that candle how it finishes burning, and thinking about my mom, who had to spend her last months in such darkness and sometimes cold. Once again, in my region, it was totally bearable. I would not describe it as pure suffering, but it is definitely not the comfort a person deserves. So I am very proud that with all of these challenges, we now have generators. We now know how to protect our energy infrastructure. And they wanted to, you know, they always write this forecast for Ukraine that we will destroy you during winter because we will target everything, you will freeze to death. It didn't happen. Spring is coming. You know, trees on the streets are blossoming. And we are very well prepared. Even I have EcoFlow in my house. And you can shop in times of the blackout. And at the same time, this is something that cannot be accepted, cannot be forgiven, cannot be forgotten. And I do believe that God will punish Russia for that. It should be like that. That is the basics of justice, of truth. And it cannot be the other way around. Let me know, would you like a separate video about these generators? I don't know how to plan it, but I can do it, anything for you. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel. This means a lot. And please share these videos, because perhaps they tell you more about what life in times of the big war is, and most importantly, why we need to defeat the evil. Slava Ukraini!